The 6 modules of motorcycle safety are Module 1, Developing a Motorcycle Safety Strategy, Module 2, Implementation and Evaluation of the Strategy, Module 3, Road Design, Engineering and Planning, Module 4, Licensing and Training, Module 5, Helmets and Protective Clothing, Module 6, Vehicles. Mr. Kenn Beer is a road safety engineer and a transport planner. He is recognized as a leader in motorcycle safety infrastructure. He established a road safety engineering consultancy, Safe System Solutions Private Limited. Mr. Beer will be presenting the modules for motorcycle safety. Module 1, Developing Motorcycle Safety. This module systematically unpacks the development of a motorcycle-specific road safety strategy. It looks at the critical elements required in developing a strategy and focuses on the review of existing and future countermeasures. Mr. Beer will start Module 1.
Motorcycle safety strategy. The center of the safe system is how much force the human body can handle. Safer speeds is an important part of the safe system. And that's all about managing and keeping people within those tolerable levels. Safer vehicles. You saw yesterday David, Alejandro and Jess telling you about all the features that we can put in to make it safer. Safer roads and roadsides. There's a lot you can do there to make the roadside and the road environment more friendly if a crash occurs, but also things to stop crashes occurring in the first place. Then there's very important, the road user. And how do you make them do things that are safe and comply with the rules? And then there's lots of things that enter into that system. Legislation, enforcement, understanding the crash risk, when the crashes will happen, why they happen. Admittance to the system, that's licensing. Who do we let onto a motorbike? Who do we let into a car to drive? And education, making people understand why and what things are safe to do. The safe system, which it's starting to be global now that people are signing up. They want to meet the safe system. The safe system also says that nobody should be killed or seriously injured. Within the safe system, motorcyclists are the hardest to deal with. This is a well-established formula for risk. And this one you don't have in your notes, but I will refer back to this concept of risk. Risk equals the probability something is going to happen and the consequence of that happening. So this is, how likely is that to happen? And this is, if it does happen, how bad is that going to be? When we're developing a motorcycle strategy specifically, I like to start with the very simple philosophy of thinking and planning what to do, doing it, and then looking at it and reviewing it, and then feeding that back into more planning and improving. Just a cycle. And I've put here some benefits that are specifically for having a motorcycle safety strategy, and some advantages of doing that I've put down there. You do a comprehensive assessment of motorcycle safety issues. You look in detail at what the motorcyclist needs and what you can do to improve safety. You can get commitment from stakeholders, from the people who are interested in this. You can get commitment to a set of actions if you have a specific document. Things that we all want to do. But sometimes you need to prioritize those. You can't do them all at once. You need to start and prioritise. A motorcycle safety strategy helps you do that. Public commitment to actions. The community can support them. Getting community involvement, and Ray Shuey talked to you about that. Enforcement, a critical part of enforcement is having community understanding and the community on board. This provides one way forward. I talked about all these different things you want to do. And often we get small groups doing one thing, another group doing another, a government organisation doing one thing, a volunteer organisation doing another, and a strategy gives everybody a plan to work towards, but it also facilitates multiple actions that are all trying to go in the same direction. Planning phase that I talked about, when you're thinking about, okay, let's sit down, let's think about motorcycle safety and developing a strategy. Some of the things that you can think through are who should be involved, which groups and which individuals should be involved. As you're in this planning phase, you're thinking ahead about a motorcycle safety strategy, you need to think about what resources you are going to need for this. And very much linked with that, you need to think about what are the financial constraints. I have never worked in a jurisdiction, in a country, in a state, or with anybody who has said they don't have financial constraints. Everybody has financial constraints. So even the countries that have lots of money to put into motorcycle safety will say they have financial constraints. So you need to recognise that and just put some dollar figures next to the actions that you want and the things that you need to do, and understand that there is limited funding. There is always limited funding. But how can you best use the money you can get? Timelines. And this is for general road safety, for motorcycle safety. You need to put timelines on things because it forces the people involved to achieve things to report back. But there is marketing the strategy. This is something that is not done well in any country. I don't believe we did it well in Australia. We could have done a lot better. In America, I've worked with the Americans. They are very good at marketing, but the strategies, they don't market. Market your strategy. Get it out there. A thing that you can possibly do is establish a steering committee. And that's a group of individuals that can represent organisations that can be champions of your strategy. It's good to get a diverse cross-section, academics, researchers, people that are practitioners, people who do operations, policymakers, the media. They're good people to have involved if you can get them on board. So these all help to keep your strategy an important document. Another key element is to identify key issues and characteristics. This is where you start to understand what the specific issues are for motorcyclists. Now, when I refer to motorcyclists, I'm talking about big motorcycles, small motorcycles. I'm even talking about the e-bikes, the electric bikes that are higher powered. When you're looking with the magnifying glass there at the crashes that are occurring, you want to get as much information as you can about the crashes that occur, the type of vehicles that are involved. Are you seeing a lot more crashes with the bigger motorbikes, which may not be as many vehicles out there, but are they more likely to crash? Are they the small motorbikes? Are they the e-bikes? You also should be considering growth and planning. Your countries are growing at huge rates. You're building new roads. You're building infrastructure. The third module today, we talk about designing roads and planning, thinking about motorcycle safety. A lot of standards around the world have been developed originally, or a lot of them came from the United States. The AASHTO standards, the Federal Highway Administration standards. And then all the different countries around the world used those as a model and developed their own standards based on those. Those standards were originally developed for cars, yet we all seem to use them very much as a basis in countries where motorcyclists are the dominant road user. So we'll talk a bit more about that, but you want to have a think about all this growth that's happening. Which areas are going to have more population, and what facilities do you need to provide there to improve safety for motorcyclists? And that one is very much improve safety for all road users as well. Geographic issues, thinking about windy roads, roads in regional areas, in the country areas, or the city environment, the very congested, built-up areas. What are the issues associated there? Seasonal issues. The wet season. Do we see more crashes then? Do we see less crashes then? Festivals, events. In Thailand, Songkran, that's a big one, but a lot of different issues to deal with for road safety and for motorcycle safety. And the other countries will have similar things to deal with. And how you approach that, getting the information early to formulate a strategy is very important. And then community expectations and concerns, and understanding what your community as a whole needs and wants. And I include in there, in community, politicians and different government officials, and so the whole community. Consulting with the stakeholders, you can get them on board. You can invite them to comment on issues that they know of. All your different regional areas may have different issues. Getting that input from lots of different places. The more information you have, the better. You can think about all of this information and come up with a strategy. After you have all this information, you can think, okay, where do we go? What do we do? And you come up with a draft strategy, which gives you some direction at a high level. Will we focus all our attention on helmet use? Will we focus some attention on the road infrastructure? Will we look to change standards? Will we look at more enforcement of vehicle standards? Is drink riding, intoxicated riding, a big issue? Do we have to deal with that? Do we have to look at a specific week in the year and do a lot more enforcement activity? These are all things that you can add in to a draft, and you're going to be providing that back out to people to comment on. Some of the good things to consider in these strategies that have worked in different places around the world is if you can get a high-level commitment. Somebody at a very high level to say, I support this strategy. They take ownership of it. And I have some example strategies for motorcycle safety where the minister has signed up and said, I take ownership of this strategy and I make a commitment to it. And this is a very powerful tool, especially if you can get that person that has influence over the funding, the changes in policy, the changes in law, to have that commitment. That's how you can see real change happen. A draft strategy has guiding principles. I spoke a little bit there about them at a high level. Maybe you want a very big focus on helmet use if your country currently doesn't have a high helmet usage. That may be a big pillar in your strategy. There may be others. And for the rest of the day, we'll be talking about different issues, specifically for motorcycle safety. And you can think, is this a big issue in my country? And is it something that we should be highlighting very prominently in our strategy? Providing some high-level data is a great way for people to understand the issues and what you're facing. And especially if you're looking for high-level commitment, to understand the high-level data is important. In a strategy, though, you don't want to go into too much specific detail on that, because often the high-level people just don't have time to read the big reports that we love to develop. So you need to pick the important pieces of information from your data and put them in there. Your priorities, what you think are your priorities, and they will be different for each of your countries. They're definitely different for my country, but you need to understand that based on all the information that you've got, and you choose your priorities, some objectives, some things to aim for. And then we get into the activities that you will actually do, the action plan. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. A possible framework for a strategy, and you will have ideas throughout the day of other frameworks, other ways to look at these things. But a possible framework for a strategy is to look to prevent crashes. So you look at all the measures that you can have to prevent crashes, but then also thinking about when that crash does occur, which it will, how can you reduce the severity of that crash? And then also, how can you improve the treatment of those that are injured in those crashes? So that's looking at your after-crash care, your hospital system, those that collect injured people and take them to hospital, and then the rehabilitation ongoing from that. That is a possible framework for you to consider. There may be others. You can then send out your draft strategy to people to get their comments. You may think that you have an idea that is a very good one, but somebody may be able to tell you a reason why that is not appropriate. You are unable to do that, or that it's a very good idea and here's some more ways we could do it. This is a very interesting component of the development of a strategy, because you will get people or organisations that are against some of the initiatives you put forward. So you need to consider all the information you get. Is it relevant? Is it true? Is it accurate? And does it align with our vision? Another important thing with that, though, is to provide feedback to those that provided you feedback. So if somebody made a comment on the strategy and you decided that you would accept it and you've changed the strategy accordingly, you need to tell them that you've done that. And likewise, if somebody makes a comment or a suggestion but you decide not to take it on, You need to provide that information back to them as to why you did not take that information on and change the strategy. Then we get into the incorporation and implementation of your strategy, which is where we see it actually take place and we see actual things happening on the ground. We may see new campaigns, we may see changes in design standards, we may see changes in vehicle standards or enforcement. It's important to, this is a very critical step, and in fact the next module is all about how you implement this strategy. Also within there is the good opportunity to publicise, that marketing I was talking about. If there is a new initiative, you can talk to the media about it. You can see if you can get some high-profile discussion happening about your strategy. And the last step is to measure and to evaluate. To have a look at all these initiatives that you've come up with, all these things that you would like to do. You've implemented some of them. Did they work? Sometimes we try things, they don't work. We need to accept that that did not work and change them. It's often a very hard thing to do, but if it's not working, you need to look at it and say, should we keep investing time, money, resources into this thing if it's not working? I've just picked a couple of motorcycle strategies from around the world, just ones that I know very well. Two here, one from New Zealand and one from within Australia and Queensland. The one that I specifically want to look at, because I was very involved in developing it, is the Victorian motorcycle strategy. Now, as I said before, the issues that we are dealing with in this strategy are very different to the issues that you're dealing with. But this strategy has a framework in it that is applicable for any jurisdiction. We're going to do a small exercise, as I said at the start, about thinking about your stakeholders. Who do you need in your country to be involved if you were to develop a strategy like this? Once you've made that list, we're going to put them onto this matrix. And this matrix has, up here, has influence. And down here, it has informed. So what this means is how the influence is how much can this person or this group make change happen? How powerful are they to make change happen? If they said, I want a new law that says, I want to change the rider licensing age to 18 years old, if they said that and it happened straight away, they are very high up on this influence. If it took a long, if that was just one of many voices and it was all considered, they're probably lower down on the influence. And then informed is how well do they know the road safety issues and the motorcycle safety issues? How knowledgeable are they on those? From your big list of stakeholders that you've put down, we're going to place each stakeholder somewhere on here. So perhaps the head of the police department would be very influential, but may not know about motorcycle safety and the needs of motorcyclists. So may sit somewhere in this box. This is just an example. Or maybe the head of the police department is very knowledgeable in the motorcycle area may sit there. So you can do this for individuals or organisations. So you can talk about your Department of Transport,